Hey everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Corner. That's right, guys. It is me, Spider Slayer, and we're back for another Walking Dead rewind. That's right, guys. Hey, are you missing the show yet or what? You know what? I am. But, I am glad that I am doing these rewind videos and rereading the old novels that originally came out in the old issues. It's just fun to reread them and relive and to see all the characters and what they were like back in the original stories and things like that, and it's great to compare. But with that being said, we're going to get started, and today's Walking Dead Rewind consists of issue number 6. That's right, guys. The Walking Dead issue number 6. In the last issue, we witnessed, just like on the TV show, the attack of the camp from the tons of zombies that came, and we witnessed the death of Amy, and then we also witnessed the death, or not the death, but we witnessed Jim getting bit, and in the comic book, he gets bit in the arm, and he gets a huge chunk of his arm taken out. Where in the show, I think he got bit in the chest or in the belly, around in that area there. In this issue, this is the issue where Shane dies in issue number 6. So in The Walking Dead, issue 6, Shane does not last long in this series at all. He dies very, very early. To whereas the show, he lasted in season 2, which is on Hershel's farm, and Hershel's farm is the next story arc that takes place in this series. So he lasts considerably a lot longer, and the story is quite different as well. So with that being said, we're going to get started with the walkthrough of The Walking Dead issue number 6. All right, guys, here we go. Okay, I'm back. So, in the beginning of this issue, we focused on the last issue. We focused on here on Jim's arm. That was the last issue of how it got bit. In this issue now, we focus on his arm, how it's all bandaged, but it's still all bloodied up. He's sitting there with Shane and Donna, and the group, or the camp, is mourning the death of Amy. So it was a big deal, and what they're doing is they're all taking a turn saying good things about Amy. Donna and Alan saying, she may have been a pain in the ass, but I loved her. Jim said that she doesn't deserve this, but nobody deserves this. And, as we go along here, Shane speaks and Rick speaks. And so they all speak, and then they all part their ways. So they're just saying their goodbyes to Amy. Meanwhile, Jim's condition continues to get worse. We can see that here. He's in the bed, and he is just basically saying, oh, wow, I haven't turned as quickly, as this guy that I worked with. And Don is attending to him, and Alan is very concerned about the situation. And what happens here is they're discussing, and they're like, well, how is he? And Don is like, oh, he's worse, and no one will go around him. So basically, Jim's just not doing too good. Next, Rick and Shane and Carl, they go hunting, and what's going on is they're talking, and Shane's just real short right now, and he's going, they're just going, oh, quiet, Rick, quiet, Carl, I'm trying to get the dinner, and so we shoot a rabbit, And Rick is all excited. And he's like, oh, wow. He's like, Shane, if you get a few more of that, right over here, if you get a few more of that, we'll be set. And then, Carl makes a statement and he goes, oh, we don't get as much as usual, Dad. Amy's dead and Jim's too sick to eat. And Rick just sits there and says, I know, son, I know. And Shane just loses it right here and he goes, God damn it, Rick, it's not my fault. So right away they start arguing. See, Shane, this would have never happened if we would have gotten out of here and this and that. And he's like, I told you this would have happened. And they're going back and he's like, think, Rick. He's like, if we were stuck out here, he's like, if we go out in the country, the government won't come and they won't rescue us. So he's starting to lose it. Him and Rick are just going at it. Carl starts running away. He starts, crying and running off. And he's just like, Rick is just like, oh, sorry, Carl, and he's chasing after him. So as the story goes, Andrea is just deeply depressed, and we can see that Dale is, just by her side, just taking care of her, making sure that she's okay. In the meantime, we go back to Jim over here, and you can see that he is just desperately changing into a zombie. He's coughing. He's doing all these things that, all the symptoms with the burning fever, but yet he's cold. And his last wish is that he wants to be left alone, and hopefully when he comes back, he'll rejoin his family. So what happens is the group actually honors his wishes, and they basically get him dressed in his clothes, and we can see that they leave him here by the tree. And basically that's what happens to Jim. And you can see over here that they start walking away and you see them fading away in the distance. And that's what happens. Where they did this in the show, but they just drove away. And the next thing we see the group, they go to the Center for Disease Control, which this doesn't happen in the comic book at all. So that whole scene in the show is completely different from the comic. That never even existed here. So the next morning happens, and Rick is all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and he's all like, oh, yawn, and he's just like, oh, he's like, hey, Rick, let's go hunting. And then what happens is he doesn't want Carl to go along, and he goes, and Rick says to Shane, you know what, we need to talk. And he's like, Shane's like, well, what do we have to talk about? And Rick's like, what the hell do you think? So they start arguing again. And what happens is short-tempered Shane over here just gives a good kapow right to Rick's face. And the next thing we see here is Lori just basically goes over and she goes, what's with you, you son of a bitch? And she just fucking scratches Shane right over here. And then Shane, you can see it in his eyes. It's all gone. It's all gone right there. He's gone. He's lost it. At that point, that's when he's lost it. That's when he realizes that Lori's gone. And that's it. The whole group is sitting here and just staring at the situation on what happened. And he's just lost for words. You can see Shane. He's just lost the words. There's nothing in his eyes. There's nothing left. He's just like, and he goes, oh, fuck it. And he just runs away. And he runs out in the forest. And Lori's all depressed. And she's just sitting there going, oh, what's happening to us? What's going on? Things are just never going to be the same again. And at this point, Shane is just completely gone bonkers. And Rick is trying to, chase after him. And we sit here and we says, he sits here and he's just like, Shane, stop. And I have some pictures for you so you can see him a little bit better. And hold on one second. And we can see right here, it just, Shane, he's just like, Shane, stop. And Shane is just lost. He's like, what do you want? And he's like, whoa, just put that gun down. And you can see the craziness right here in detail that Tony Marr put into Shane in his insaneness, and and he's just like, and Shane is just blaming Rick for everything that he's saying, that went down, and it's just crazy to see it. He just says, you really did it for me, buddy. You really did it. Oh yes, you did. I'm nothing now, Rick. Nothing. And basically, what's happening is that Rick, he's blaming Rick for his situation because he's got no life, he's got no friends, he's got no family, he's got nothing. He realizes that in this world he has nothing and he is shit in this complete world. And that's what is bugging him the most. He thought he could make it with Rick, but you know what? He realized that he couldn't, and he feels that the only way is to basically take out Shane, because he says there that everything was so perfect because she would have been with him. And when he says she, he means Lori. Lori would have been with him, Carl would have been with him, and he would have had a family, and he would have had something to live for in this world. So, as the page goes on, we see that he points the gun at Carl, and he's like, no, Rick, this is the only way. This is what it has to be. We weren't meant to come back. You weren't meant to live, So he talks like that, and Shane's like, please, Shane, don't do this, Next thing you see is a BAM! And you see little Carl with his gun, and he says, don't hurt my daddy again! And he shoots him right in the freaking neck. And in the next pages here that I'll show you, is that we see Shane is just gargling with blood. He's like, and he's just falling to the ground here and falling, and then he just comes to the ground. And then there's one scene here that Carl says, and he goes, it's not the same as killing the dead ones, Daddy. And Rick goes, it never should be, son. It never should be. Which I'm pointing out this page for a reason. This is the end of the first trade paperback, the end of the first story arc, and the end of issue number 6. And we see these words here. It says it never should be, it should never be the same as killing the dead ones. Well, if you go into our most recent issue, in issue number 95 of The Walking Dead, at the end of this book, what we see here is that Rick is in an instance where he has to defend himself. He's trying to get a person off of him. We can see right here. And no one wanted to help him. So what happens is he relates to basically just slicing this guy's neck. And basically the guy, does the same thing as Shane does. He's gargling his blood all over the floor. And he just drops dead, spits out the blood. And people are all around, looking around. And then what happens, the guy is dead. They're all looking at Rick. And Rick is looking down at the guy. And Rick just sits there and says, he's all pissed off, and he's like, what? So we can see that Rick now is a completely different character from what he was in issue number 6. He killed a guy. He thinks nothing of it. He looks at it as a zombie. Rick has lost his marbles up to date, where he was just this nice guy before. Now again, he's lost his marbles. He looks at people like they're zombies. They're worthless. Unless it's his son, and unless it's his initial group, that's it. Nothing means nothing. So, with that being said, what will happen to Rick in the future, and it will be great to see how Rick goes stir crazy kind of along the way. Totally different character now. But again, that's the end of issue number 6. Give me your guys' thoughts on this issue when you read it, or if you remember it. And you guys that have never read it, hopefully you'll leave some comments on what you think of this particular issue. So that is the end of Walking Dead Rewind, issue number 6. So until the next comic book review, this is Spider Slayer signing off. Thanks for watching Comic Book Corner, guys. Take care. See you soon. Spider Slayer out.